Hey, everybody, it's Matt Michaels here on the DeFalco Files with the owner and creator of FSW, the future stars of wrestling here in Las Vegas, Mr. Joe DeFalco. And happy birthday a couple days ago, Joe. How does it feel to be 22 again, I think it is, or 23 again?
Actually, it was one day ago because it was yesterday.
Well, I know it was yesterday, but when people are listening to this, it was 2 days ago.
Oh, there you go. Good thinking on that one. Yes, it was a very impactful day. Let's see. I sat at the house, picked the wife up from work. She went to sleep, and I went and lost money gambling. So, yeah, it was and I went to the school for 30 minutes. So it was a big day, big day.
Hey, speaking of gambling on your birthday, are you getting any offers for the birthdays through the casinos? Because I know there used to be a really nice thing that stations did where you got like 50 like free play dollars.
Yeah, they used to have like some kind of like Aladdin's ball for the, when you your card. They don't do anything anymore. They used to do, hey, like I played enough where they give me a dinner certificate, and it was like $25 off the food, nothing crazy, but every month you get that. It's like they don't do after the pandemic. They cut the points in half. They did all that stuff, and yeah, it's totally different now. Like they're trying to get all their money back in 2 months that they lost in a year.
Yeah. So you talked about that you went down to the school for about a half an hour.
More than I can take.
What is going on with the upcoming shows for SummerSlam weekend? Again, to remind listeners, Natural Born Killers is going to be that Friday night, the 20th, I think it is.
The 20th at 11 p.m. We have Graves already signed, obviously. Cal Jack, Tom Lawler is hosting. It's just texting Stephen Bonner and Frank Mir. Just got a message back from Mir. He was supposed to be out of town to the 20th, but I guess he said they moved the date. So we're going to talk to him either to be on the card as a performer or as a commentator, because, he did a tremendous job in commentary. I'm hoping he'll work for way less on commentary than he will to fight. You know what I mean? But, Tito Escondido, he should be back after he had a collapsed lung. And he's actually said he might be available for the show on the 7th that we're doing. But so he'll definitely be in the mix. Dave Mazzani's been signed. Ryan Walker, who fought at NBK2, former Bellator fighter. There's another guy from Extreme Couture that Mazzani's put over. We're working on, a women's match, for sure. Brett the Threat claims that he will be there and is going to offer an open challenge to anybody whose first name is Bodie, I believe. And, so, but I believe the first name has to be Bodie, so it eliminates Sin Bodie. So I'm not sure where we're going on that one. Talking with TJP to return, Simon Gotch. So it's definitely going to be a really strong card. Chris Dickinson, we're just seeing if he's going to be out here for the GCW. He usually is. So, the only issue with that card is trying to only do 7 matches when there's so many guys, because it isn't wrestling where you can do a 6-man. But maybe I'll try it. We could do a fatal 4-way Born Killers. Just as Frank Mir is going to tap out Stephen Bonner, maybe Cain Velasquez comes in with the chair and takes him out. You never know.
Oh my God. You've just now you've solidified the joke forever that Joe DeFalco only runs 8-man matches. So
there you go. it's going to be tough. 7 matches, 2 people. Wow, only 14 guys on a show. You know,
Oh my
and the funny thing is, I'm getting hit through the woodworks. You know, Ricky Tenacious. Oh, you know, I have a wrestling background. It's like, well, okay, that's good to know. And Judah Matthew, you know, he just wants to do a promo at the end, thanking his father for allowing him to perform tonight. You know, I don't think he actually wants to fight, but he just wants to thank his dad. You know? So, you know, there's a lot of people, you know, who say, hey, bro, you know, I'd love to be on the card. And it's like, yeah, so will a million other people.
Well, everyone get ready for the pre-show 20-man rumble.
Yes.
Winner faces Frank Mir.
I always wanted to do an over-the-top steel cage match. I thought that'd be cool. That was always a good gimmick, you know.
Oh, and then having 4 different referees, four guys in the cage, 4 different referees, and all 4 guys' feet hit the ground at the same time.
Yeah, and the reps are all screwed up anyway, so it won't matter.
So that's what's going on Friday night, again 11 p.m. SummerSlam weekend, and then the next day, 12 noon, is the FSW versus GCW show. Any news on what's going on with that show? Anything kind of formulating taking place in terms of what kind of matches or how many matches might be on the card?
Just through the name wise of the matches, we're probably looking at 8 matches. Later today, we're going, which actually would have been, I guess, last night. We will be announcing the first 3 participants who will be representing FSW, which of course I can announce here. And the first 3 participants representing FSW will be Chris Bay, Funny Bone, and Jay Vidal. So that's the 3. Now, I talked with Brett at GCW earlier last week, and he was like, hey, you know, we just need to get through the weekend. Obviously, they got a new heavyweight champion. They got a lot of things going on, which, you know, puts a little, you know, throws some things up in the air. You know, we were looking for Nick Gage to defend the GCW belt. And, you know, now it's Matt Cardona. So, which I think was a brilliant move because, you know, like he's so the anti-GCW guy that it's fantastic that, you know, no matter who he wrestles in the future, that guy's going to be the biggest baby face in the company at that time because they want to get that belt off that motherfucker. They hate him. You know,
yeah,
that's tremendous. You know, as much heat as our boy Class has, he wishes he gets that Matt Cardona heat that he gets at GCW. You know,
yeah.
You know, if he came back as Zack Ryder and it was like after, you know, when he was hot, I think he's a beloved. He would be beloved in GCW. Right. But now that whole persona has changed, what? Like I'm like, it's going to be a GCW heavyweight championship match without light tubes and without blood and gore, and it's like, oh shit, you know, they went over the top for sure. You know, you would think. You would think that they would have saved that maybe for down the line, or it's like I was shocked that he was able, that he even did that stuff. So, yeah. You know, shocking. And there you go. It was like, can't take the call. It's my guy Frank Mir. So got to call him back.
Let me ask you this. You know, with that happening, with you know, just seeing how brutal that match was, and you know, the reaction, of course, was crazy online. Does someone like that, who has that That background or reputation of someone who really is not a hardcore wrestler. Uh, does that interest you in, you're thinking of, hey, maybe, um, we run some kind of match like that where one of our guys who is not known as a hardcore guy goes against someone like Funny Bone, and I'm talking just in FSW, not necessarily in the versus GCW show. But have you ever been in that situation where you've put someone who's not known for hardcore skills going into a match with a guy like Funny Bone or Sin, where there's some brutality involved?
Well, I think we did very recently when Ice Williams wrestled Funny Bone. And, that was a vicious match. I'll tell you that. And, you got to give Ice credit. He took a severe beating in that, going through the doors, Funny Bone with the thumbtacks. It was a pretty intense match for a guy like Ice Williams, who's more of this, old school character kind of wrestler. You
Right.
know what I mean? And even a couple years ago, when we saw the early stages of Matt Vandergriff, he worked Sin Bodhi, at a Beers and Body Slams. And, Matt was looking to do, as we've seen, he's definitely a daredevil and a high risk taker. So, now when you look back, it doesn't really surprise you that he would do that. But back then he really did it. Then all of a sudden you see a clip of him climbing on top of somewhere and jumping 20 feet, And then I just saw one recently, he did a moonsault from like 30 feet.
Yeah.
Break that guy's shoulder. He landed pretty hard. I saw the clip. And I was like, dang,
Yeah. Yeah. If people haven't seen that, check out Matt Vandergriff's social media, because man, that I don't even have the words, because you talk about someone who is absolutely fearless and also lands it really nice. He could have gone into like a twist of fate or something, because he hit it so fluently in terms of, Vandergriff basically absorbed most of that fall. It was crazy.
Or he could have cracked his skull wide open and never wrestled again. So that was the other option.
Yeah, and that's why I think he's a perfect example of a daredevil versus those of us who don't want to ever see ourselves with a cracked skull. Um, does that when you see the execution of stuff like that with guys who are, the heart of FSW, um, do you hold your breath every time you see something crazy that a guy like Matt does, or are you just confident enough that he's making the choices he's making based on his ability and what's good for the story, and just hopefully everything is set up right so he doesn't get injured?
Yeah, every time there's a ladder match, every time there's something, crazy that's going on, in the back of your mind, you're like, oh, okay, they're going to do this crazy ladder spot. Now I always think of, the Hardys with Joey Mercury. And when the ladder hit his face, and you saw immediately, I'm watching it live and I'm like, holy fuck. And then all of a sudden, you just saw the blood gushing. And it was like, fucking A. And basically something like that happened this past weekend. With Remy Marcel, Brandon G, and Bodie. Remy and Bodie teamed up against Greatness and Tenacious, and Bodie looked like he was going to do a Canadian Destroyer with an assist from Remy, and Remy nailed Brandon G square in the face, and he went down like a ton of bricks, and you could see he was in La La Land, and he was finally able to slide to the outside. And then you just saw the blood everywhere, which, thumbs up for Brandon G for not bleeding on the canvas, brother, and sliding over to where he was in the on the concrete, where it was a lot easier to wipe up, than under the new Garth get Garth's sign that we had planted on the canvas at the FSW arena.
Oh man. And anyone who is interested, if you haven't signed up for the FSW network, it's $6.99. You can see the show that happened this past weekend.
Little technical difficulties on that one, and it was nobody's fault. It was actually a internet outage that was in our area.
Yeah, which is if anyone doesn't know, Las Vegas the last few days, going back to about Friday or so, had some really, really just brutal storm fronts come through, and it really messed with power and cable and internet and and all these various different things that this storm did, including uplifting trees. And we had Sunday night, it was around just after midnight, you hear outside this and a huge tree had fallen right like 2 houses down from us, and the crews came out there to pick up the stuff right away. So it's been crazy, but the show is now up. Pretty good. Speaking of Matt Vandergriff and Ice Williams, pretty good little main event you had there.
Oh, outstanding match. No doubt about it, and Matt Vandergriff, he's just been on a roll. He's just had some of the best matches, that we've seen in FSW this year. He is really broken out. And again, he did have that opportunity. A lot of times when you get into tag matches and tag teams, you really stop doing the singles matches.
Yeah.
But because of scheduling and things like that, even before Damian Drake got hurt, Matt was still doing a Future Shock or doing a random singles match here and there. And then when we knew that Damian Drake was getting the surgery, we kind of left him off a couple of shows anyway, just so we can, I guess, not make the issue even worse,
Right.
So Matt had the opportunity, and then, he worked Jay Vidal, and he worked Eli Everfly, and he worked Lacey Ryan, who wanted to wrestle Matt before, we knew she was leaving. So it was like, hey, we made that, and that was another, outstanding match. So, you look at that No Limits division, and between Jay Vidal, Matt Vandergriff, Ice Williams, Gregory Sharp at this point, anybody could be the champion.
Yeah.
Division. There's a lot of choices to carry that belt. Chris Bay obviously is gearing toward a match with Ice Williams. So, it's kind of crazy when Chris Bay might be the third choice between Jay Vidal, Matt Vandergriff, and Chris Bay. That's how good those other guys, they're hot as hot can be. The show kicked off. Jay Vidal was tired of what Gregory Sharp, and those guys brawled all over the place, and it was definitely a hot start to the show. We had a lot of good things. And that's what I'm talking about. When we run shows, nobody can compete, man. It's like we had a show that didn't have our heavyweight champion Hammerstone. It didn't have Graves. It didn't have Class. It didn't have a lot of people that are Adrian Quest, Brandon Gatson, the RMB. There was a lot of top tier talent that wasn't there because we have more top tier talent than pretty much anybody.
Yeah.
That we can go a show and not use half of our top 20 guys, and we're not going to miss a beat.
And speaking of, talent, Midnight Heat comes in to face Death Proof. What did you think about that match?
Unfortunately, our fans are very finicky. So when a team comes out that they don't know, they kind of brush it aside. You know, the fact that they're Defy Tag Champs, they wrestle Hollywood all the time. They wrestle a lot in Oregon. They're up and down the West Coast. They worked PPW in Vegas for years. You know, Ricky Gibson did, and him and Cody and him and Jake. They've kind of run against each other. You know, in the past, years. But to the FSW crowd, they're kind of not very known. So it takes a while for them. You know, they're now going to even be more solidly behind Death Proof. So it's really hard for them, and to try to get over to the crowd to where they're taken as a serious threat to win the tag titles. And when they don't, it's kind of expected. So it's like, you're also trying to give Death Proof, a really good match, being that they've kind of gone through the whole tag team division. So it's like, hey, let's freshen it up. Let's give them a tag team that's doing very well on the West Coast, and, the crowd maybe gets into this one. And unfortunately, they didn't get into the match, the way I would have, hoped for. And again, if we brought them in and they beat up 3 different teams over 3 different shows and then work Death Proof, then I think maybe there'd be a buzz. You know what I mean? It's like, it's very rare for a team to come in and, the Toko Uso, but that's because Juicy's kind of known already and Toa's this big monster. And when they come in and they're throwing people around and they're beating the shit out of the heavyweight champion Hammerstone, it's easy for people to buy into that tag team.
Yeah.
The problem with that tag team is Juicy's a hot commodity. After that GCW appearance, he's really gotten a lot of bookings, and you really got to catch him far in advance. Toa's newer, he's fresher, but thanks to our boy Sefa, who put the word, because Toa comes from Knox Pro, where, Rikishi's the owner. So Sefa said, you got to get to FSW. So Toa's really made it a priority. So now the MK Army that consisted of Tito as the main singles guy and Toko Uso as the tag has really turned into Toa as the main singles guy to carry the load, because he's pretty much on every show. Juicy's going to be here SummerSlam weekend, and Tito's hurt. So, it's up to Toa to carry the banner.
Yeah.
And each time he comes out, him and Graves had a war. They had a 4-way, a big match. And, Nino Black tossed him out of the Rumble, and he got his revenge. And he took out Nino Black this week. So Toa is definitely a guy that you better keep your eye on if you want to talk about, who's a guy that is a threat to the heavyweight championship.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of good things in Toa's future. Thinking of, like you said, the tag team division, Death Proof haven't really kind of wrestled everyone. Have you had any thoughts about potentially bringing in maybe Reno Scum to fight Death Proof?
There's been some discussions, but most importantly, budget is a key factor. Unfortunately, doing shows at the school or at the FSW arena, as we like to call it, really limits the budget compared to a Sam's Town. At Sam's Town, we know we're going to do more than the 200 people that we'll do if we sell out the FSW arena. And if we're putting a show with Death Proof against the Reno Scum, I'm pretty sure Hammerstone's wrestling Toa and Remy's wrestling this guy. And now all of a sudden, the cost, far outweighs the potential income that comes in. Those are kind of like the anniversary show. Like, we desperately needed to do it somewhere else just because we wanted to make it special. And even though we can fit 200 or 220 at the FSW arena, they're packed in like sardines. It's not a comfortable 220 people. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, the sides have one row. For FSW, GCW, we might have 2 rows and no guardrails. So people get up from over there by where the runway is. Man, like, excuse me, you know, there's literally no room. I actually have a meeting tomorrow with a place that actually called me up and said, hey, nice big joint. They think they could do about 600 people. Obviously, that's without the ring. So I had the ring in there, but it's close to Allegiant Stadium. And hey, you know, I'm hoping the stars align. And, you know, we sold out a second row, but we only have 25 second row because we didn't offer the side seats, which is 20 and 20, which is another 40 seats. So if this place is literally within walking distance of the Legion, it's 5 minutes away. So anybody who's afraid to come because, hey, the show's at 12, it's 2:30, maybe it goes to 3 because it's GCW. Oh no, we're only going to get to SummerSlam an hour and 20 minutes before the show starts, God forbid. And now if you only have to walk 5 minutes, maybe more people are willing to show up because now they can walk there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, you know, we're going to see what the future holds. I've seen some pictures, you know, and some of it looks good and some of it looks iffy. So it's, you know, you have to actually be there, you know, to see the place. So, you know, obviously we love diversion amusement and we're looking to be there, survival of the fittest, September 24th or 25th. But we need, you know, we need different places. We need to, you know, we can't do diversion because the owner's mother's having her 103rd birthday party on Saturday, SummerSlam Day, August 21st. So even if we wanted to do the FSW GCW show there, it would still be, you know, impossible to do.
I don't know, Joe. I think that the GCW versus FSW show would be the perfect place to celebrate your 103rd birthday.
I would think so. You know, you can, you know, get a light tube to the head from Nick Gage.
And you know what? I don't think Nick Gage would hold back from beating up.
No, not at all.
You know, speaking of the weekend again of SummerSlam, the third show that you guys are doing is the Future Stars of Women Wrestling show. How is that coming along? And are you finding that you are seeing the number of women that will be in town is something that you're able to use to your advantage to book a full solid card for that show?
Yeah, without a doubt. Like I said, we got 2 girls from AEW Dark, Natalia Markova, a girl named Vert Vixen, and they're going to be in town. And they're working AEW Dark. Checked out their stuff. You know, they're going to be there. Actually, because she trains at the school with Allison Danger and Jay Vidal and Vandegrift and Damian Drake, Katie Forbes has pitched an intergender match with Jay Vidal. So, wow. And, you know, she's willing to, you know, work with us when it comes to, you know, the financials, you know,
sure.
The first thing I said, I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure you're out of my budget league. And she said, you know, we'll make it work. So, you know, she's there. And literally I've gotten messages from women and women that may not even be planning on being there for SummerSlam weekend, but they'll make their way out, you know, if they can be on the show. So, wow. You know, we already got Maz and Sandra Moon and Strella, you know, and Bryn Thorne and Viva Van and CC Chanel. Like, they're all, I pretty much believe, booked for that show. Add Katie and Jay Vidal. You know, who knows? Maybe they tag up against the last show's intergender champions, Ricky Tenacious and Lola the Explorer.
Yeah. You know, when you look at, the idea of putting a show like that together, where you're going to have a showcase of all this great talent from around, the country, essentially, uh, is it something that you have to take into consideration in the booking of the show, how to make your girls look strong, but also to allow the other women to, look just as good? How do you balance that? And even with, the men that come in from around the country, is that something that you have to take into consideration so that everyone feels like they've been treated fairly enough, so that if you liked what they did, they would then be able to come back?
Well, either way, everybody's always looking for opportunities, and when you're talking about women's stuff, there's a few companies that run, full blown women's shows, but if you go through the average card on an independent wrestling show, there's going to be 8 or 9 matches, and you're lucky to have 2 women's matches. Maybe in some special occasions you're going to have 3, and that's the issue when it comes to, say, at FSW. The Sandra Moons and the Mazes and the now Strella, who's kind of gotten to that next level. They need opportunities to work. But we got 2 young girls. We got Dana Lynn and Alice Blair, and they're getting there. But it's like, it's hard. Like, how many times can that combination of Sandra, Maz, and Strella kind of work each other? Obviously we haven't gone to the Maz Strella thing because they've kind of been paired together. But, if Strella goes out and kills Alice Blair in a minute and a half, why would a month and a half later I want to see this match again?
Right.
You don't, so you work on different things, just like when Lacey was there. A lot of times there wasn't opportunity. So that's why she'd work a Vandergriff, she'd work a Jay Vidal, whatever it is, we'd put her in an intergender tag. Either way, when you're in training, you're going to work with guys, girls, it doesn't matter. Everybody's working with each other, and know how to work. And in a lot of cases, we see with some of the girls that they work better, especially when they're younger, working the guys, because they don't hold back as much.
Right.
And, now all of a sudden it's like, well, that's cool. Viva Van wants to work, and Bryn Thorne wants to work, and CC Chanel wants to work, and Vipress wants to work. It's like, okay, well, I got Bryn Thorne coming in. I got Viva Van coming in. I got CC Chanel coming in. Okay, well, that's 3 girls. Now, am I doing a tag match? Am I doing a 4-way? Am I doing 3 singles matches? Then that's a lot, because you got to remember, I got 40 guys, and now I'm only giving them 5 matches, and I got 3 girls, and they're all getting matches.
Right.
So when you look at it as, hey, how come you don't have more women's matches? Well, there's only so many you can have. And then it's like, well, I got 6 tag teams, and you're bringing in the Midnight Heat, or you bring in True Grit, or you bring in the 1% West Coast Wrecking Crew, whatever it is, the Reno Scum. That makes the Suavecitos, the Creature Features, the Sky Highs not have a spot.
Right.
So there's a lot of juggling. It's really easy for my kid to come out on SummerSlam and do a show that weekend, because he doesn't have any loyalties, priorities, etc. He's just booking a one-off 8-card show. So, sure. Hey, Matt Vandergriff, who do you want to work? You know what I mean? Hey, Jay Vidal, hey, we're going to do this match, or we're going to do that match. Because it's easy. There's no storylines. There's nothing set up. It's like, hey, it kind of wrote itself with Strella and Deshade at the Rumble. So, I felt that it was a good opportunity for Strella to do something different, you know, and working with the Shade, who's extremely popular, you know, it turned out to be, you know, some really good stuff, you
Yeah.
know, and that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to mix and match and make something mean something. Because as witnessed, Death Proof in the Midnight Heat is probably one of the best matches on the card, but it had far less steam as a match, not for Death Proof because they get behind them and everything, but
Right.
as match interest, you know, people are going to be as interested in Strella and the Shade, and they're going to love the idea of Ice Williams and Vandergriff because story-wise, the faction's been strong. Ice Williams has held the belt forever, and Matt Vandergriff is a legitimate threat.
Yeah. You know, you mentioned someone like Brent Thorne. Do you, when you look at, you know, the early bookings that you had Bryn on and where she is now, do you see the development in talent like that where they are from out of state, but they've been around FSW a number of times, for you to see how they've grown as a performer? Is she a good example of that?
Yeah, yes and no, because what happened was she came out and I saw her do some stuff and wasn't happy at all. It was terrible. She shit the bed. She'll tell you the same thing. Then we were doing that Limitless show with the LA Lucha people a year or two ago, and she was on one of the shows, and it might have been a battle royal or whatever, but it was mixed and matched, and she was a totally different performer because she was in with the men. And
Yeah.
it was like, you got to understand, you can't lighten up. You have to do it the same way. You know, it doesn't look good when you're kind of pussyfooting around and you're kind of lightening up. You can see that. You know,
Yeah.
people want to believe in the realism, and didn't use her again for a while. But as she's come back, she's improved a lot. And again, she's young. It ain't like she's 31. You know, from what I understand, I believe she's like 24, 23. You
Yeah.
know, she's that old.
Yeah.
So she's definitely got a bright future. You know, I told her, it's like, hey, when you're in town, it'd be nice if you actually let me know, you know, instead of 2 hours before the show, I get a message from Sandra Moon. Oh, Brent Thorne's going to come down to the show. And it's like, well, yeah, I got nothing for her. Now, if
Right.
she told me the week of that she's there, might be able to figure something out.
When we look at, you know, we talked about the SummerSlam weekend. We talked about the past weekend's show here, the High Octane show. Coming up on Saturday, the 31st of July, is the Future Shock show. What was the whole origins of Future Shock? And, you know, has it been something that, because I know back in like our UPW days, for me, the shows that they would have for young talent, about 20 people would be there. It'd be, you know, at the school. And it was really just kind of a polishing session, you know, getting guys to work in front of, you know, family and friends or whatever.
Yeah, I know the Riggs brothers used to work a lot of those shows, the light shows they were called.
Yeah.
Well, it started at the Boulder Highway location, and we basically called it the student showcase. You know, where guys who weren't ready, the younger talent was like, hey, here's an opportunity. Let's see how they can do. And it kind of ran its course. A lot of work involved to run a show for 15 to 20 people, you know. And Future Shock student showcase has always been, you know what, I promote my ass off. We try to get people to the events. These shows are your shows. You know, we're charging $10 a general admission ticket, and we're giving you $3 per ticket sold. So you either can sell them for $7, or you can sell them for 10 and keep the $3 on your own. And for a while it was, you're responsible for 5 tickets. You want to be on the show. And that's $35. You want to get on the show, you're paying $35. If you can't sell the tickets, have your family and friends come support you. You know, if you can't get one person in your life to come support you as a wrestler, you may not have a great future, you know, in the business, because your job is to sell yourself. And if you can't get a family or friend to come to your thing, and we have done some shows in the past where the Future Shocks have outdrawn the High Octane. A lot of times it was when we put like somebody like Bodie or a couple of the kids, the younger kids, and they came out full force supporting, you know, the opportunity. We actually did one all kids class show, and it was probably one of the most attended FSW arena events we've ever had, because, you know, who sold 12 and 9 and 14, and then our regulars, and it was a packed house, you know, to see those events. And it's like, there's so many opportunities. Like, okay, we got our guy Reese. He's been training over a year now, and, you know, he finally got a little bit of a taste. He got to be in a tag match against Sin Bodie and Bodie. Him and Davion, who's also 16 years old. Reese is older. He's not a kid. And, you know, he's hungry for a singles match. And he's not ready to have a singles match on High Octane or in a casino. So we're going to give him an opportunity. So we're going to have him work Sin Bodie. You know, here's the guy who's taught him, trained him, one of his trainers, that he can, you know, make sure it doesn't go awry. You know, if you got young guys and it starts shitting the bed, there's nobody there to pull it back in. You know, that's why, and a lot of times on Future Shock, a guy like Greg Sharp would be on that show, and he'd always work some of the younger talent, because he's one of those guys that was always patient. He understood, you know, if a guy wasn't ready, he understood, like, hey, Joe said, give him a little. If it doesn't work out, you know, finish it. If it does work out, give him a little more. Let's see how he does, how he reacts, you know, if he screws up, how he responds to that. And it's harder to do that in a practice match in class.
Right.
So this gives these guys the opportunity, because back in the day, it would be like, I remember Romero and Jacob Austin Young, Gorgeous and Young, and we probably didn't do a Future Shock, but they got to work the pre-show matches. And that was, you know, that's where the invent of the 8-man tag came, and the 5-way scramble. It was trying to get some of these younger guys an opportunity. And, you know, some are dumb fucks, and, you know, they look at it as, oh, I'm in this throwaway match. And it's like, if you're in a match for 30 seconds, you have 30 seconds to show your worth. And your philosophy is, oh, I'm in a throwaway match. Well, good riddance. You know, who are you and who do you deserve to be on the main show over? You know, my idea is trying to get you guys an opportunity to wrestle in front of 400, 500, 600 people and see how you react. I understand it's the pre-show and half the crowd may not be there, but it's still better than working in front of nobody in a practice match. You know? And guys who've shined on those shows get more. The enhancement guys like a Brandon G, who work their ass off to make the other guy look good, may not be in, you know, positions to be a champion, but his goal is to be a wrestler and be on shows. So he's the guy who gets on shows because he works hard, understands what's needed from him. You know, a lot of times guys come in and it's basically a squash match, but they need to try to get some cool shit in because they think they need to do it to impress me. It's like, how about you do that in a practice match at the class? Not when I need you guys to get beat up in a minute and you're trying to like do cool stuff and ruin everything that I want in the match. That doesn't that doesn't do anything for me.
And along those lines, do you think that when you're a student, when you're still learning, when you're still growing, do you think that it is kind of, and I don't know if it's the training or if it's just the thirst for, being seen and making it, or being famous, or something like that. But do you think that there is a loss of understanding that what is more important is that you show the solidity, that when you're given the direction of what needs to be done, that you can do it? And that is more important because as you go out and you start working for other promoters, the main thing that you need to do is be able to go in and do what is asked of you. And of course, the term is doing the job. But in a sense, that is a true thing, because when you're hired, you are given a job to do, regardless if you're going over or if you're taking the pin. Do you think that's a very important thing that kind of gets lost in this generation of, everyone needing to feel like they have highlight reels and they get more, YouTube hits and social media hits?
Yeah, the problem is everybody's trying to get out there. So there's a few guys I've had conversations with, like, this is your persona and this is your character here. And I don't need your character to all of a sudden start cleaning house and super kicking everybody because you want to show a 20-second clip to somebody in Chicago that you're trying to get booked on. Like, yeah, this is what I need in the match. I understand, but I need to worry about my product and my show. And that's what becomes the conflict, because you are looking for yourself. You're trying to get yourself out there and you're trying to make yourself known to the masses. Well, if it's in a situation to where you're not really doing a lot or doing what you want to do, then what do you do? You try to slip some stuff in, slide in some stuff, because you want to have a highlight reel. Hey, I need a clip of this. I need a clip of that. Well, if you're not doing a lot in the match because of the way the story is being told, how do you prove to that person that you can do more? So I understand it, but unfortunately, there's things that we need or I need to where now maybe I don't book you on the next show and you're losing out on, 2 opportunities a month and you wrestle once instead of 3 times because I need somebody like a Brandon G, for example, who is going to go out there, show his ass, let Bodie beat him up, and not be like, oh, well, he's just a 14-year-old kid. The biggest misconception is it's a work. The job is to have people believe what you're doing, be enthralled by what you're doing, and being engaged by what you're doing. I had a conversation with big name guy about natural born killers. And it's like, you need to be a little more realistic because nobody really believes that I would tap out. And it's like, yeah, it's wrestling. If it was an MMA fight and you lost a guy 100 pounds less, that'd be a different story. When you're a non-regular coming into a territory, you're going to put somebody over. It's just, it is. Or you're going to wrestle some jobber guy that it probably wouldn't be worth somebody flying you in and paying your rate. Like, I'm never going to spend $500 for a guy and spend $400 on a flight to now wrestle, a low-end guy.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't do any service to anybody. I'm not bringing in an EC3 and then he is going to work, you know, and I'm not even going to say a low end guy. I'm not going to put a guy like a Fresco in there with him who's higher than a low card guy, because nobody's going to believe Fresco is going to beat EC3 to begin with.
Right.
So EC3 is going to walk in and he's going to be working guys like a Hammerstone, a Graves, a bigger name main event guy, because he has name value that, unless, you know, you're doing a program and he's going to be around for a while, sure, then maybe you do something with the faction and them, like a Danny Limelight, who obviously isn't at the level of an EC3, but he's a bigger name outside talent that comes in that's still at that borderline where you don't have to pay crazy amounts of money to get him yet. You know, he's semi-local in Cali. He wants to come out. You know, he hasn't become such a superstar that he's going to demand Matt Hardy money. Faction like he did, yeah, absolutely 100%. So, you know, it's understanding things on all parts. Unfortunately, a lot of guys, whether they understand or not, they don't give a fuck. They only care about themselves. And, you know, and again, in a lot of cases, you need to do what's best for you. You know, I hear guys tell me, hey, well, I was told, not by anybody from management, but from wrestler, hey, if your music doesn't hit, don't come out. So if the sound's broke, we don't have a show because you'll never come out. Like, you're not more important than the show.
Right.
The show goes on without. Get the fuck out of the way, and I'll go right now and find two guys that will come out in their jeans and a t-shirt that weren't on the show and run out there to get a match.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, in most cases, the reason people like your music is it's because it's somebody else's fucking song that they like. It ain't you. It's the song. Hey, yeah. I love Eminem. You come out to an Eminem song. You think anybody gives a shit that it was you? Whoever came out to the Eminem song, they were popping for the song. It's, you know, like, do your job.
That's a very interesting point. And do you think that, so if, let's say if you come out, like you said, like to an Eminem song, and the crowd gets hyped because of that song, do you think that what separates the memorable match or the memorable performer from, you know, just a throwaway, basically, is the fact that when you come out to a certain song, if you can match that intensity, that feeling that that song evokes in the audience, then you're doing something right, because it's fitting the character, it's fitting who you are, and now you're an extension of that music, essentially. Is that something that some of the guys, you know, do miss, that when they get out there and now, you know, you just got hyped up by this great Eminem song, and then you go out there and you're just kind of like, you know, headlock, wrist lock, you know, it's not intense, it's not brutal, it's not a lot of, you know, face punching and just brutalities. That's something that the guys can miss a mark on.
Well, yeah, for sure. See, but the thing is, like, nowadays, because of stuff airing on Twitch and Fight TV, there's a lot of issues about copyrighted music. So at FSW, 90% of our guys' music is usable without having any conflicts. You know, the thing is, guys like Sky High, you know, that's a signature song. You hear that, you know, it's them. You know, Funny Bone, they're still in the process. They still come out to their own music.
Right.
And we've gotten to limit it a lot, but the Unguided, Remy Marcel, Ice Williams, they've come out with stuff that they've used long enough that people know them by that song now. So it is them that are getting that reaction. You know, it's also the biggest pet peeve I have with the character or the thing that they do. And this guy comes out and he's a maniacal psycho and he's pulling at his face and he does this stuff. and then the match starts, and it's just a regular wrestling match. He doesn't
That's
do anything of what his character is perceived to be. And, you know, the one thing, as I always said, you know, when you compare Hyper Streak and Gregory Sharp, I was never a huge fan of Hyper Streak. I've said it on a million occasions. You know, he was a guy who cut good, passionate promos when he needed to. He had good facials. Hyper Streak starts off and he runs around and runs around and runs around like the Flash. And then he goes in and has a match, but he still wrestles like Gregory Sharp did 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, the maniacal Gregory Sharp, who we had talked, and somebody brought it up instead of Hyper Streak with his new persona, there was a name bandied about that I loved, and that was Kill Streak. And, you know, I really, really liked it. And me and Greg kind of went back and forth. He was like, well, you said you didn't like Hyper Streak and, you know, the Greg Sharp. I go, yeah, I do. But I really like this Kill Streak idea too. You know what I mean? But if you see, as Greg Sharp has come in and he's put the attack on Jay Vidal, he is 100% believable as this maniacal person who feels that not only the fans, the management, anybody representing FSW just saw him as that guy. They saw him as that the good hand, that top utility player. And it's really built a fire in him that when he comes out, you can see the passion of him trying to prove everybody wrong. You know, you could call anything a work that you want, but I believe, and that's what's important as a wrestling fan, I believe that he's not putting on an act, that he's not putting on a show to be a character. He's wanting to go out and prove that he deserves the accolades that Jay Vidal's getting, or a Matt Vandergrift's getting, or a Remy Marcel has gotten, and all these guys, or what's perceived to a lot as the flavors of the month, that they come in and like, oh, Everfly, he's hot as a firecracker. Like Greg Sharp's been doing it for 9 years, you know, traveling the globe, carrying FSW around, spreading the word, and, you know, feeling like, you know, it's like that love, the love of your life that doesn't feel the same way. Like he feels he's put everything into this relationship, but he's not getting back what he's putting in. I believe it 1,000%.
Yeah.
And if not, then he's the best actor in professional wrestling. So either way, it works out great.
And do you think, you know, something paying attention to those little details, like, you know, if you're turning into a heel, instead of calling yourself Greg Sharp, you use the full name of Gregory. Do you think those little details make it all that much more believable that this person is, you know, a prick or an asshole, or, you know, someone you should despise? Because, you know, I mean, we even knew Greg Sharp, right? But who's this Gregory Sharp? It's, you know, is that something that just kind of factors into the development of what a person can do with the character, you know, down to as something as simple as the a couple letters onto your name?
I think it's more of adding as many layers as you can. And that is another layer. He didn't have to do that. He could have did something else. But adding layers on top of it, just like Class, you know, Christopher Landon, Anthony Streeter. You know, it sounds like a privileged person.
Yeah.
You know, I'm Class for short. You know what I mean? It's just another layer of his douchiness that has gotten him to be one of the top 3 heels in FSW in less than a year.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah. As we wrap up here, Joe, let me ask you, we got Future Shock again coming up on the FSW network this Saturday, the 31st of July at 7 p.m. Again, the network costs $6.99. You get Future Shock, plus you can go back and watch all the stuff we've been talking about. So it's a great little thing to subscribe to. What can fans expect if they tune into Future Shock this week?
Well, it's a combination of things. You're going to see some fresh talent. You're going to see some new guys, but you're also going to see Sin Bodhi, Jordan Cruz is back. Thomas stays back for his first singles match since before the pandemic. He made a surprise appearance at the Rumble at the anniversary, and now he is ready to roll. So he's another good addition. He's a former No Limits champion. He's a very entertaining character. He's a very entertaining wrestler. The last time we saw him, he was hanging out with that WWE guy, NXT, Tyler Rust, I believe his name is over there, Ryan Taylor, part of the Soul Burners. Also, Sandra Moon was an apprentice with Thomas Day. So it's going to be interesting to see if there's any interaction between the two, as Sandra has gone on to her own successful career over the last year. So, mixing and matching that, and like I said, getting as many of our younger talent, on the show. Mike Rain, who runs Best of the West, he's going to be down. I think he's coming down more to hear some gambling ideas for him, but he'll throw in a match while he's there. And, he's a good guy for the FSW crew to say hello to and meet. He runs Best of the West, who, Chris Bay, Funny Bone, a lot of our guys, work Best of the West. He uses a lot of Vegas dudes. He knows there's talent here. So it would be smart on the younger guys' ends to introduce themselves and say, hey, I'm Mike, I'm Tony, I'm Bob, whatever, and that way he can keep an eye on them. And then if they send a mention, they're on the radar, because the goal is to work as many companies as you can.
Yeah. On that note, everyone, again, please subscribe to the network. Check out all the great content that's there. Also, if you're in the area and you want to, get a ticket for Future Shock, definitely look at the FSW website. And then after Future Shock this weekend, there's one more show that's coming up. That's a high octane before the SummerSlam festivities get under the way later on in August. So you get a lot for just $6.99 a month.
And August 7th, we already have Hammerstone, Graves, Class, Remy, Death Proof. I'm pretty sure Ice Williams and that band of misfits that he calls the Faction. Eli Everfly was supposed to be there. He's banged up, recovering from injury. I'm hoping we have things set, but there's another name for Natural Born Killers, Eli Everfly. I'm excited. I have an idea for a match that we need to solidify, but there's a couple of options, and I'm really excited to have Eli in there, because just watching his style and his grappling ability, we've seen him pull out some amazing reversals and combinations, and there's some really, really huge talent there. I kind of want to see him go one-on-one with Hammerstone myself. You know what I mean? Be a true David versus Goliath. Him and Graves, who knows? That could be, a battle right there. But yeah, so we got a lot of talent. I'm going to get off here and make an important call to a former UFC heavyweight champion who has been at Natural Born Killers before, and seeing if we can spice things up, and maybe he'll work Eli Everfly. You never know.
Well, I hope that the phone call goes good, and I hope that that particular person does end up coming in for the show, because that would be that much more entertaining.
Yeah,
And
it would be good to have Brock in the main event.
yeah, of course. And the I thought Brett the Threat already announced that it wasn't an open challenge. He got Conor McGregor to go against him, right?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I haven't gotten the return email. So,
all right, everyone, thank you for tuning in. And as always, follow the Vegas Bad Boys podcasting, and follow FSW on all their social media. And again, the network, $6.99 a month, and you get all this great content, and you can
the
see
biggest bargain in wrestling.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
$2.33 a show.
And I think the last time a person paid $2.33 for a show, you were getting like George Hackenschmidt and those guys.
Lutez, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Until next time, take care, everybody.